What could happen if you got hit with $1,000 emergency tomorrow? For millions of Americans, that single expense could create a financial crisis. And that's how many families are to the edge right now. Make sure you guys subscribe, comment, share, and let's check out this video.
A Republican congressman started bragging about buying steak and lobster tails for the 4th of July, then said regular American people can't afford these things because they don't work as hard as he does. Take a look.
Actually, real quick, how do House Republicans make the case that you're fighting for affordability when you go back to your districts?
Affordability? What are you talking about?
Well, affordability is the big...
I'm going to go there tomorrow. Well, over the 4th. I'm going to get me a couple big lobster tails. I'm going to get me some nice ribeyes. I'm going to sit in my backyard with my family.
You think 60% of Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck can afford lobster tails and ribeyes and all of that?
Maybe not. Maybe the 60% of America don't work as hard as I do either. I mean, I don't know.
That was Representative Troy Nehls of Texas, and the disconnect between him and the working class in this country could not be more obvious. To imply that struggling Americans simply don't work as hard as a member of Congress is insane, especially when stagnant wages and inflation have outpaced standard working hours, and productivity is through the roof. In a typical year, the House is in session in Washington for roughly 110 to 130 days. This is all they work for the entire year, and during these weeks, they attend committee hearings, vote on bills, and meet with lobbyists. Real back-breaking work. But the American people don't get long recess periods. They work year-round, facing a much more rigid schedule. The average full-time employee works 42 hours per week, but millions of Americans have to work more just to afford basic necessities. Despite the fact the American people work substantially longer and more difficult jobs than members of Congress, they still earn substantially more than us, $174,000 per year, while the average American worker only earns $48,000 to $55,000 per year.
I don't know if people around the world know this, but many Americans cannot afford to live, cannot even afford some of the basics that the rest of you don't have to worry about. Americans can't afford their gas, can't afford their groceries, can't afford their health care, let alone anything enjoyable, doing an activity on the weekend, going someplace. Everything is outrageously expensive. Even fast food. You tried to feed a family of 4 at McDonald's, you might be spending $40 and $50. Everything is inflated right now. Remember when he ran on this campaign of lowering grocery prices, lowering the price of gas? Why is gas in the US well over $5 a gallon in so many areas? $5 a gallon. Why is the price of eggs $7, $8, and $9 a dozen? How is that lowering prices? How is anybody who voted for him still defending him? It's not just people on the left not being able to afford their lives. It's the MAGA Republicans too, but this is what you voted for. And I know so many of them are upset. We warned them. We warned them constantly. And here we all are.
I don't understand how fucked up America gotta be for you to work hard and still have no fucking where to go. It's just like, oh my gosh, when is it all going to end? Like, y'all, it's so bad to the point where even though you work, you more than likely can't even eat every day. Not even 3 times a day. Me, none. Yet they expect us to keep working with a smile on our face. Fuck all of that. I be seeing why people don't fucking want to work. They pay us a little bit of money, but make everything fucking expensive. I'll be damned if I'm putting my life on the line for $14, $15. And then the whole time, your ass can get hurt or die at the fucking job you're at. So now you done fucking wasted your whole life being a hard worker to a company that don't give a fuck about what you got going on, don't give a fuck that you don't have nowhere to go, just don't give a good goddamn. And certain people will never understand the frustration. You guys will never understand unless you're going through it. There is no reason why hard workers can't afford to eat, can't afford to live, can't afford to pay rent, It is so much. And I just wanted to let everybody out there know, okay? If you are deciding to bring your ass to America, hold on, y'all. Stay the fuck over there. Do not come over here. Please. I beg of you. This shit sucks. All prayers to all my Americans, all my USA motherfuckers, you know what I'm saying, my cousins, all that. We gotta figure something out, because this ain't gonna work for me.
Hey, I want to pause here because I actually hear what you're saying. You're working hard. You're sacrificing your time, your sleep, your comfort to take care of your family. And it is something I deeply respect. A lot of us are doing exactly that. What I'm talking about isn't wanting something for free. It's that even people who are doing everything right, working, budgeting, sacrificing, are still coming up short because the cost of basic survival has gotten so high. This isn't a laziness problem. This isn't the math isn't mathing anymore problem. Nobody should have to break their body or lose every piece of joy in life just to afford groceries. You shouldn't have to suffer to deserve food. None of us should. We're actually on the same side here. We both want our work to matter. We both want our families to be okay. And we're exhausted because it feels like we're being asked to stretch air. It's not about wanting a handout. It's about not wanting to drown.
50% of Americans can't cover a $300 emergency. 150 million people are a flat tire away from homelessness. Let that sink in. That's the reality we live in, and it's closer than we like to think. Something worth remembering the next.
So I saw this headline today and I thought it was missing some pretty important context. So let's talk about it. So the headline says, shocking 105 million Americans are not working, more than during COVID or the Great Recession. So the number itself is accurate. This is based on official government data, but it's not necessarily that 105 million Americans are unemployed, which I think the not working sort of implies that. It's that 105 million Americans are not in the labor force, and that's a pretty important distinction. A lot of this has to do with demographics. So think retirees, students, stay-at-home parents, caregivers. There's a lot of folks out there that are actively not trying to be in the labor force, and that makes up a lot of this big number. And then if you zoom in on those that are trying to find a job, the numbers get a lot smaller. So 1.8 million Americans, they're considered marginally attached to the labor market. So basically that means they've been trying to find a job or they've looked for a job over the past year. And then more recently, specifically over the last 4 weeks, they stopped. And then of that total, roughly 1 in 4 are considered discouraged workers, basically meaning that they have stopped looking for a job because they simply don't believe that they are going to be able to find one. So the biggest takeaway from all of this is that we have a labor market that is structurally changing, and it's been pretty rapid over the past decade. We have an aging population, we have baby boomers retiring, a lot of people decided to retire early post-COVID, and then we have immigration restrictions. All of that has pushed people out of the labor force. So that's a big reason why that number, 105 million, has grown so fast so quickly. Now, even though it's a stable job market, it's still a difficult one, especially for certain groups, particularly younger workers, recent grads. We have a career ladder that's frozen, so a lot of mid-level positions, they're not getting promoted as often, so that means less entry-level jobs for people trying to break in. And then you've probably heard of this dynamic called low hire, low fire. That's impacting people's ability to move around and be more mobile in this labor market. So there's a lot happening, but this just caught my eye and I thought it was interesting and I wanted to just clarify a couple things. And I'm also curious how you guys are feeling in this labor market. Has it been difficult to find a job, to switch jobs, or are you mostly feeling okay? So let me know.
When are we going to realize that the American dream is no longer achievable? We can't make America great again if the American dream is an impossible feat. So if we're trying to make America great again, then we need to make America affordable, because right now, it's not.
Quick question to any Americans, between the ages of 35 to 45, especially if you have kids, but even if you don't, how are we affording things? How are you affording anything? And houses and cars That's not really what I'm talking. But yeah, that. I mean more like, how are you affording gas and groceries and healthcare and utilities and all the other 900 subscriptions that are required to live these days? How are you doing that? I'm assuming you all also are not you're not taking any vacations, and you've like us have just cut out the coffee and the Target shopping and the activities for the kids as much as you can. You've taken away. You've gotten rid of pretty much anything fun. Like, you're not having any more fun. Assuming you're also doing that, how are you living?
Something the average middle-class American does not understand is how incredibly violent poverty is. I'm talking about the emotional, spiritual, and physical violence of having to work near constantly just to be able to stay in survival mode. What that does to a person, it's violent.
I don't want to hear shit about young people are just not working hard enough. Come on. When I was 18, I had a 2-bedroom apartment in a complex with a pool for $450 a month. There was another place downtown where you could get apartments. They were in the hood, but still you could get an apartment $150 a month. When I moved to rural Georgia, I was renting a 2-bedroom house for $325 a month. They didn't check my credit. They gave me the keys the day that they met me. When I moved to San Francisco, California in 1992, you could get a studio apartment for $450 a month. That meant 2 people could put together their welfare checks and get an apartment. One would live in the closet and one would live in the living room. SSI at the time was, I believe, $890 a month. So you could be on SSI and you would still have money to live. So I don't want to hear about how young people are not working hard enough. It's the fucking economy. It's the rent prices. It's the wages.
Teens can't get jobs because they have no open positions. Because adults are working these jobs. Because they can't get a job in their field of study with their degree. Or they have a job in their field of study with their degree, but it doesn't pay them enough to live, so they need a second job. That's simple. Everybody understands this, except for the news, apparently. It's not because they're lazy and don't want to wake up before noon for their job. Adults can't even get jobs right now, and we're surprised that teens aren't getting summer jobs? It's not rocket science.
We don't really work a 9-to-5 job anymore. Our generation is working 8 to 5. That's kind of the new normal, which is 9 hours a day, which is 45 hours a week for a full-time job. And because in probably around half the country, living near the city has become so expensive, we don't have the privilege of living 5 to 10 minutes away from work. So we have to live 45 minutes to an hour outside of where we work. So that adds an extra 2 hours a day of commuting, or 10 hours a week in commuting. So a full-time job for someone who is working very hard is putting in 55 hours a week for their main job. That is already an insane amount of time. And most people who are in a relationship have 2 people doing that. That means that there is 110 hours a week being put in under that household roof. And then the suggestion is, we'll work harder, get another job. After 55 hours a week, even if they were to get another job and they did serving or Uber and put in another 15 hours on the weekend, now we're up to 70 hours a week. That is where we are, where it doesn't even feel like we're living our life and then we go to work. It feels like we just work and we get like a lunch break for our life.
When are we going to stand up and say, this is enough, we're not taking it anymore, and we're going to do something about it? We're at that point, because this is the end result, guys. This is where we're going to be if we don't turn around and start doing something about this. If we don't start talking about this, getting this out in the forefront and pushing back, this is going to be the end result. The decline of America. That's where we're at. And I just can't hammer the point enough. You know, I drive around here where I live and I see more of this and more of this every day. And I drove by this place today and I said, I want to talk about this. I want to show this. I want people to see this is what's happening in our country. This is what they want. This is what they want for us. This is their vision for America. Sure, we see all the plastic cities and all the bright, shiny lights in the cities, but you get out here in the rural America, this is what you're seeing. They've crushed the rural America. People out here, they're not doing good. People are hurting. Jobs are scarce. You know, you go fill out 300 applications and you find out none of them are hiring. The only thing they're doing is data farming us, getting our data, getting our information. Why? We all know why. It's about control. It's always coming down to that. This is what they want for America. This is their vision for America. I mean, here we are. You know, you're working 80 hours a week. Not only this, look at what happened to the decline of the American family. We had, back in my day, dad went to work, mom stayed home. Then all of a sudden, now we're at the point in our lives where it takes two people working in the home in order to make a living. So I wanted to bring this up, you know, because this is what's causing this. Here we are. We're sitting here. Who's got time to be able to cut the grass if they're working 80-hour work weeks? By the time you get home, you're already burned out and tired and burned up. Now, you look at the cost of a new roof. We all know what that's going to cost, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars. This is the issue we're facing today.
Who do you work for, Director?
President of the United States.
No. You work for the people of the United States. You take an oath to the people of this country. You should be fired because you work for the people, not the president. None of us work for the president. Why do you think the agency was created? Because of the president? Congress created the agency because of the awful financial distress that had happened on our American people. You can blink your eyes all you want. Last year, Americans lost roughly $16 billion to fraud. 25% increase from 2024 on your watch. The highest level on record on your watch. In fact, CFPB has received more consumer complaints in 14 months than in the first 14 years of its existence. Your watch. In May, CFPB deleted more than 2,000 pages from its website. These include consumer advisories, blog posts. You didn't do it?
Nope.
You didn't do it? Nope.
We overhauled our website.
Okay. How is CFPB adhering to congressional mandated consumer protection mission by removing consumer education and other materials from its website?
We did not remove materials from the website. We put it in an archive
section. So you didn't remove the Know Your Right. You archived the Know Your Rights for veterans? You archived it?
We archived the
You archived the Know Your Rights, Russell, for veterans. You guys can get all upset all you want. He doesn't work for the president.
I know boomers get a lot of hate, and this isn't a hate boomers video, but I do need to talk about something that comes up in conversations with people from the boomer generation a lot in my personal life. And it's usually when we're having a conversation about, you know, whether or not I'm going to have kids. And if I bring up, you know, how much I do love kids, but how I'm just really struggling so much financially. And like my boyfriend and I both work multiple jobs just to be able to pay for our 1-bedroom apartment and have a dog, you know, barely making ends meet. Why would we want to bring a child into that, whatever, right? And the response that I usually get from people in the boomer generation, and I know it's with good intentions, right? Because this has been family members of mine. My own mother, I think, has said something like this. So I know it's not coming from a bad place, but I want to talk about why it's frustrating. The response is always something along the lines of like, you know, when we had our kids, we were piss poor, eating chicken soup every night and, you know, living in a basement and, you know, we made it work, right? It's the basic summary of the response is, I know it will be hard, but you make it work because once you have the child, you love the child so much that you make it work, right? And so, and I get that, but I have 2 points I really want to talk about when these conversations happen. Number one is, and this is specifically when these conversations happen with people from that generation. I know people from my generation are making it work too. That's different, okay? The boomer generation had an obnoxiously higher possibility of making things work financially. Like the American dream was still alive for them. They could just go to work, get a regular job at, I don't know, a post office, stay there, be loyal, move up in the ranks, get a promotion, get a raise, and like be able to also, you know, mortgage a home, still go on vacations, have kids. Like, you know, when you, the struggle, financial struggle, and of course I'm generalizing, but that's what I'm doing. So I'm sure, don't bean soup me. But the struggle was so different because of the mobility, like the upward mobility that they had then. You could actually move up. You could actually build wealth. You know, it wasn't hoarded quite as badly as I would say it is now. And it didn't probably feel so fucking impossible to crawl out of a hole financially. I'm not saying that, you know, it was easy, obviously, right? But right now, I mean, my boyfriend works a union job full time doing like water treatments. He also is trying to like open an online business right now to sell collectibles. He's literally right at this moment out door dashing to make extra money, right? I manage these bread routes that I manage. I also babysit a couple days a week. No, buddy, that's glass. I have an Etsy where I try to sell art, and I DoorDash on the nights that he's not DoorDashing because, you know, we want someone with the dog, right? And I'm currently trying to write a book, so I don't know. Hopefully I'll get a book deal one day. But my point is, we work nonstop just to be able to pay for our 1-bedroom apartment. And we are still at the end of our money, the end of every week. And when I tell you we have cut costs like I don't get my nails done, I don't get my hair done, I don't go shopping for clothes, I don't go out to eat and have drink, like there are no luxuries anymore. And that's fine. I'm not complaining. We wanted to get into this apartment, you know, we had to, but we also didn't really have a choice. We were gonna have nowhere to live. So my point is, like, we've been doing the right thing, just working at our same jobs, getting raises for however long now, and it doesn't make a dent, whatever. So my point is, it feels a little frustrating sometimes when I get that response, because it's like, yeah, but it's different. But making it work now, it's a whole different world from making it work back then, right? That's number one. Point number two, if you're still here, is why would I want to bring a child into the world when I'm in survival mode financially? Like, why would I want to put a child through that, raise a child whose mom is like already at her wit's end with working, busting her ass to do everything she can to afford just that roof over their heads. And now I gotta pay for diapers and formula and baby clothes, and they grow fast. You gotta get them like new size clothes all the time, you know? Why would I want to put a child through that when I'm not there yet? Like, if I do figure it out, and if my boyfriend and I do somehow hit it big and manage to get ourselves financially safe enough where we're not in survival mode, that's a different story. But why would I want to bring a child into the world when I'm like worried about being able to take my dog to the vet? That's crazy to me, you know? And so, yeah, those are just my 2 points. Again, like I said, everyone who's ever said this to me has been a loved one or someone that I know has good intentions. So I know it's not ever coming from, you know, a place of thinking they know better or anything negative, really. I know it comes from a good place, but on the receiving end of it, it almost feels like, no, why are you telling me that? That's not possible. Why would I want to do that? Like, you know, why would I choose to do that when I can just choose not to, basically? So yeah, I don't know. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the topic, because those are mine.
Let's talk about a dream. Specifically, the American dream. The spacious suburban house, 2 cars in the driveway, annual vacations, and shiny college degrees on the wall. For decades, it's been the gold standard of a life well lived. But what if it wasn't a dream at all? What if it was actually a highly effective, incredibly lucrative business model designed to keep you running on a treadmill until you die? To understand how we got here, we have to go back to the 1920s. Before then, People mostly bought what they needed. Corporations realize that if people only buy what they need, eventually, they'll stop buying. Then entered Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud. He took his uncle's theories on human psychology and weaponized them for Wall Street, pioneering the public relations industry. Bernays' philosophy was chillingly simple. He believed that conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses was essential. He shifted America from a needs culture to a desires culture by making people feel inadequate. The message changed. You aren't buying a car, you're buying social status. You aren't buying mouthwash, you're buying a cure for loneliness. They systematically convinced you to buy things you don't need to fill a void they explicitly created. The trap was set. Fast forward a few decades. To afford this manufactured lifestyle, you needed a good job, which required the ultimate golden ticket, a college degree. We were brainwashed to believe that without a university diploma, you were a second-class citizen. Millions of 18-year-olds signed papers they didn't understand to borrow money they didn't have. Universities funded by blank government checks cranked up prices between 2000 and 2019. The inflation-adjusted price of college skyrocketed by 59%, while wages for degree holders rose by a pitiful 5%. Today, Americans are drowning in over $1.8 trillion in student loan debt. You didn't buy an education. You bought an expensive entry ticket to the middle class that is increasingly worthless. Yet, the monthly payments are forever. Because stagnant wages can't cover the dream, corporations and banks devised a sinister workaround. They extended you credit. They substituted actual prosperity with the illusion of purchasing power. By 2025, total U.S. credit card debt hit $127 trillion. The average household carries over $9,000 in debt with interest rates topping 20%. You became a literal asset on a bank's balance sheet, a reliable monthly revenue stream, and a slave for life to the very corporations that refuse to pay you fairly. Because your money goes towards servicing debt and status symbols, there is nothing left for security. Despite working to the bone, most Americans walk a financial tightrope. Over half cannot cover a $1,000 emergency. You are exactly one busted transmission or surprise medical bill away from total ruin. The ultimate cost of this system is your youth. You skip vacations and answer emails at 9 p.m. not to achieve a grand vision, but to keep the repo man away. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. It took your insecurities, sold them back to you at a premium, and financed the whole thing, so you'd have to work until you drop. But there's a secret. You don't have to play. But the moment you realize this dream was manufactured by a corporate marketing executive, you can stop buying it. Step off the treadmill. Reclaim your time for a walk in the woods or a meal with friends. You don't need their fake status symbols. The only thing more valuable than their profit margins is your life.